Hello there, Ranger here. Today I have a special video lined up for you, where I will be running through the Inside Star Citizen video that Cloud Imperium Games has posted, involving the star maps and the mobiGlass's new functions coming in 3.23. Afterwards, I will be sharing my possible critique and feedback. These are all subjective, based on my own opinions, and not exactly representative of any form of collective viewpoint. I do, however, have some experience in this area as an engineering student within media technology and interaction design, so hopefully I'll be able to make some analytical points that I think might be interesting for discussion and perhaps forward to the feedback for the game. So without further ado, hope you enjoy. Let's get started.
Never sat in this one before. As Alpha 323 continues its journey towards becoming Star Citizen's biggest life in the verse as we know it patch yet, we know lots of folks have patiently waited to see one thing above all others: the Misc Raptor. What? The mobiGlass and Starmap app. The mobiGlass and newly christened map app.
Arrival complete. Welcome.
So the mobiGlass is getting a massive visual overhaul for 323.
The version everyone's been living with for years is it kind of does the job, but you can see it's dated now.
So the entire mobiGlass is overhauled from what it was before. It's using a new technology that we've built called cards, and we use cards for other UIs throughout the game. For the mobiGlass, it was a big task to convert because it has a lot of apps in it as well. So we need to convert all of those apps over to the new tech in order for the entire thing to be able to release.
So in 3.23, we've got a really big improvement to the user experience. So everything's designed to look nicer and feel nicer.
Ready to upgrade.
And sadly, we haven't really had all the time we needed to get all the apps there. So you are going to recognize the VMA and the comms app just as they have always been. But with that package, you're getting all the other apps with a visual update and also functionality updates for some of them.
You've got a completely updated home screen, so you can do things like view your ship, you can see your health, notifications. It's kind of the information you really need to see now.
So we're also getting a fully new health app where you can see all the things that's currently affecting your health and all the stats that you would normally see on your HUD.
Over time, we've added all these cool new things that can affect the player. So we're going to have things like radiation. We've got existing stuff like you can break bones. If you heal yourself, you can potentially overdose. You can have drug effects. All this cool stuff is happening, but it wasn't obvious to the player just walking around what was going on under the hood. So we added this new app where you can track all that stuff.
So the health app is going to be the place to go when for some reason you're feeling ill and you just need that extra little bit of information of what do I need to do to take care of myself to get out of this situation. So the contract manager has been in the game for a long time, and it's just grown kind of obvious that it's not doing all the things you need it to.
All the functionality is essentially the same internally, but it needed a visual polish, and also the user experience needed bringing up to date. So some new features like you can toggle between illegal missions, you can see what the rewards are going to be ahead of time.
So no more randomly getting attacked by the police, hopefully. It's probably your fault anyway.
Some big improvements coming to the mobiGlass. That's coming in 3.23, but one thing we didn't talk about yet was the star map. We've had the original Star Map in Star Citizen for a long time, so it was overdue for an update.
Don't get me wrong, like the old Skylink app, it did what it should, but I think it has grown a bit obsolete.
No, death to the old Starmap!
That's harsh.
The original one just showed the stars and planets and so on. But we wanted to expand on that.
So opening up the star map for the first time in 3.23, you're gonna realize that the star map is not just the star map anymore. It's the everything map.
It's now called Maps app rather than Starmap.
And why did we change it?
Because we now have the interior map, so this shows like your local area, as well as sort of zooming out and showing the star map.
So what is the interior map? It's a bird's eye view of the current environment.
It's a really cool 3D map. So instead of just having a top-down view, this is showing you the actual level.
And it's presented as a fully schematic 3D view in which you can find every relevant point of interest, such as a shop, transit station, hospital, and the like.
You can get them for ships, for landing zones in 3.23. In future, we'll expand on that and add it to more areas.
And if you're not familiar with the location you just arrived to, or you're a new player and you're not familiar with any of them, actually having the spatial awareness of where the things that are relevant to you are is going to provide a giant step up in terms of the experience of the game in general.
As it's fully 3D, you can move around, navigate between floors, zoom in and out, and so on, as you'd expect.
You will see the local area where you're walking around, something you've never been able to do before. Essentially, you'll be able to navigate between all the different rooms and different important areas of the game.
It also offers a way to overlay your own data onto it that is specific to you. So, for example, the location of your mission objective. Custom markers.
You can also use it to plot a route to another location on the map. Drop a marker and navigate to it, so we'll see a line on the map that shows you where you can actually go and where the easiest way to get there.
So on that map, you'll be able to just click any room you want to go to. You can go between the different zones of the area, and you can place a little marker and route all the way there.
So navigating is one of the primary use cases we want to make as robust as we can for 3.23. And so part of that involves providing a variety of fallback cases in order to help you best understand how to get somewhere. So for instance, if we ask the AI system and it can't return you a path via its nav links and nav meshes, we can ask the transit system. And if the transit system says there's a connection between the two zones, then that would help you route.
So at the time of recording, we're having issues loading all the different OCs that's in a big landing zone, for example. So we're looking into these solutions to make sure that you can track from one part to a fully different part of the area.
So Starmap. Starmap is vastly improved. The main thing we wanted to change was make it a nice user experience. So everything in there has been overhauled.
When you open your map, you'll first of all be confronted with your local area, so you'll see what room you're in and what's close to you. But you can also zoom out and you will see the universe open up in front of you as you zoom out.
From here we can see the entire verse. We can see all the planets.
Space stations, Lagrange points, all of that good stuff. You can then click on any of those markers and you will be automatically panned and zoomed into them so you can see a little bit more detail about them. If you've zoomed in on a planet, for example, you can zoom in a little bit more and you can start to see the surface locations. So you can see towns, outposts.
You get all the information you need about them. We're adding this new system where you can see all the amenities that are available at that location.
So for outposts, landing zones and stations, there will be a section here for amenities, which will show you things like whether you can buy weapons here, whether you can buy ships here, whether there's a food court, whether there's a hospital or a clinic. All of these sorts of things you'll be able to see on those box outs, so you'll know which is the most appropriate location to go to. We showed in CitizenCon, obviously, that these display much better now, so you'll see them rotate with the map, and if they've gone behind the planet, they fade out, and if they're in front of your view, they're brighter, so you can see them more easily. So at the moment, if you zoom in, it will eventually get too big and you'll go through, but I am currently working on it so that it will zoom in to the surface and you'll never actually sort of clip through the planet.
And generally, we've tried to make it feel like a much more pleasant user experience, so there's things like items don't disappear off the back of the map anymore, everything's easy to read.
So as always, The star map is what you're going to want to use to route your way through the verse.
You can still set routes as you could in the previous version, but there is a little bit more feedback if there's a problem and you can't set a route, whether you don't have enough fuel or whether it's obstructed.
It's going to be so easy, it's going to be so intuitive for you you click the thing, and there you get the button to say set route. It doesn't always just have the ability to set a route, because you can't always set a route. We will let you know when you can set a route.
There are a few things that are new for this new star map that have not been seen in the old star map. The primary one there would be search. So we now have a list of all locations. So there'll be a little drop down in your top left corner. If you open that up, you can see the full list of locations ordered by what is closest to you. And then you can also type any location and it will appear. So you could type, for example, L1 and all of the Lagrange point ones would appear. So this allows you a lot more flexibility to finding what you're looking for when it's not as sort of, immediately right there when you're at the current view. So you can go all the way across the solar system to look at something completely different.
Star Citizen is a massive systemic game. We've got all this cool stuff going on. We've got multiple players doing things at different times. So we wanted to improve the overall interface from the player to that game world. So a big part of that is the new Mobiglass.
Finally, we've gone to this effort to refactor and do the whole Mobiglass hub from scratch. New maps, new applications, everything is using new tech, and we have a much more flexible and robust system for the Mobiglass under the hood.
When you're playing Star Citizen, it should be a smooth experience. You shouldn't be stuck trying to find whatever it is you need to find at the moment. We're helping you do that with the new apps, making it easier for you to find your missions or to even just find a place in the verse.
Now that we have that framework in place, then it's kind of the sky's the limit in terms of what we can do with it and how many apps we can develop for it. And it's all using new tech, it's clean, it's the way we want it.
The other big new feature is obviously the Star Map with the brand new interior map as well.
Star Citizen is a game about exploring. It is a game about spacefaring. And even so, even when you're not going around in space, it's still about exploring.
Without the Star Map, it's really difficult to do that, right? This makes it so much easier to navigate around, to finding what you want and where it is and how to get there.
Overall, it helps the player interact with the world, get to where they want to, do what they want to do more easily and quickly.
Hopefully.
Definitely.
Oh. I agree.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that Mobiglass is finally converted over to building blocks in the new card system, meaning that Flash, as we know it, has pretty much gone to live on a farm upstate. That the conversion sets the stage for the creation of multiple new apps going forward, and that the new internal map and star map have combined to become simply the Map app. Now, of course, remember that all things you see on ISC are a work in progress, and as any player of Evocati or developer alike may tell you, will continue to iterate between when you see it here and its upcoming release in Alpha 3.23. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.
Hi, I'm not in this episode, but they told me to show you this.
Right, so very interesting video. There were a couple of points here that I found extremely interesting, but we're getting a lot more information regarding health. And health has always been something that, you kind of disregard as some kind of little setting in the bottom right saying, which tier of injury you've got, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. But then we've got the conditions and effects. So this is really, really nice, given the fact that we finally know what kind of injury, not based on experience or not based on any visual cues, just past experiences of which drugs you need to use for which conditions, and it's amazing that we're getting this feedback. So the health system is not as cluttered as I thought it would be, and it's honestly really nice looking. Moving on to the home screen, I noticed that it was a tiny bit cluttered here, and one thing that I thought of was that for being a mobiGlas and for being something that's supposed to be very personalized and, you know, unique to you, surely you should be able to change the color schemes, especially maybe the brightness of the mobiGlas. These are of course settings that could be changed later, but my thoughts are that if you can customize your hair, if you can customize facial features, makeup, and so on and so forth, you should be able to customize something like a mobiGlas. And especially if you find yourself in certain environments. I saw one particular scene here where they brought up the mobiGlas right in front of some Pico dolls. I think it was near the end. Okay, well, for the most part it's bright, but I can see how, for example, some protruding element or like high contrast elements in the background could obstruct your view. Like, this isn't exactly fully clear. Eliminate Dylan Upshaw, for example, in the middle. Where there's a dark background, it's obviously a lot clearer, but when there's a bright background, especially with the same color as the menu system, then it's not going to be as clear. So being able to customize this, especially relatively quickly and in-game, you'd be able to get around this kind of problem. Of course, I've not been privy to the system settings, so I'm not sure if that's going to be a thing or not, but from what I see, there's only one color and one brightness, so I guess we'll find out. Oh, here it is. Lo and behold. So this one. I see this as very obstructive. If I have like bright elements in the background, I'm going to be distracted by those. I'm not going to be able to fully see these unless I move away. So certain elements, especially if you're in a combat situation or like in a tense situation and you just want to quickly access the menu system, it's going to be a problem with these kinds of elements in the background. Then we've got the new star map. So this is the old star map, and here you've got the new star map. So the first thing I noticed was that the planets are insanely small in comparison to how large they were before. So before, it felt like a separate menu, but this new one feels a lot more integrated into the mobiGlas, so it looks nicer. I'm kind of worried that you won't be able to click on them. Like, I can't see information here. Like, what information am I getting here from the star map? I see Microtech. I see where I am. I see the sun. I also see Crusader, but I know that that's Crusader. And I see some, like, the planets just barely. Again, this is where the problem I mentioned before becomes very prevalent. If I'm in a combat situation, I've got a bright background, I'm not going to be able to see this. These little white specks could be orbital markers, they could be planets, they could be stars for all I know. So that's something that you need to be able to adjust in order to gain better clarity, or it needs to be dynamic in order to be able to see it at all times. I do like the design of it, and I do feel like it feels less cluttered, but I'm going to have to test it for myself to see whether I'm able to like click on the systems to see, okay, what's this? Do I need to click it and then automatically zoom in order to see what it is? Or can I get the information just by zooming in a little more? So that's something that I want to find out regarding the star map. But I do like that you can see the coordinates, and I do like that it just looks a lot less cluttered, and that the sun isn't taking up a majority of the screen like it did before. Because that thing was just bright, and honestly, when you did a quantum jump through here, you'd be like, oh, I'm going through the sun. But no, not anymore. Now you can clearly see the distinction. And going through, you're very unlikely to go through the sun, so that's also nice. One surprise element, and I hope this is extended to planet systems in general, and that is the new navigation system. and this is great for new players. It's quite nice that they have the ability to set a GPS for those like Lagrange points that you rarely visit. I'm assuming that this is also going to be added to the ships as well, so you can find your way around ships, hubs, stations, distribution centers, planets, so on and so forth with ease. And you're also able to place navigation points so that you're able to find your way there easily. However, I really hope that that is extended to orbital markers like on planets, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to quantum jump to any of those points, but it would be amazing if you could see derelict sites. So if you can drop a marker on a derelict site that you've perhaps visited, then technically you've experienced exploration, but very early iteration of exploration, because you are placing orbital markers that are expanding your experience, and if those are persistent and stay there, which is what persistent means, then you will be able to find them with ease and say that, hey, you know, I've been to these locations, and you can mark those off. So in a sense, they've given people a very, very early experience of exploration, which I find amazing. I really like that. Then what's next? We've got, well, we've seen that some interior ships are available, so we see the Reclaimer here, for example, and we can see the interior of the ship. I'm sure they're prioritizing the larger ships, and at the beginning, I'm very unsure that they'll be doing it for smaller ships, but it would be rather cool if they did that, because it is harder to find your way around these larger ships, especially when you're a beginner. And I'm assuming that it's going to be for the Carrack, the Reclaimer, the 890 Jump, those ships. One thing that was a surprise to me, and honestly a welcome one, is the system information. So if you're, for example, looking at a marker like Grimhex, you can see what is available at the location. So you can see whether there's a hospital, you can see if you can buy weapons, armor, if there's a food court, etc, etc. That isn't always available on certain stations. So I've had to Google this, and it just breaks the immersion when I have to go into a wiki page in order to look up, where can I get this? Where is there a weapons shop here? If I make a stop on the way to my destination, can I load up with some weapons, or perhaps go to a hospital, or perhaps buy armor, because armor isn't in quite few stations and Lagrange points, and it's just incredibly annoying when you go somewhere and you just can't get access to something. Now, the way that they can take this further is that they can give you even more information on what kinds of weapons you can buy at those locations, what kinds of ship items and the stock weapons you can buy at those locations. Just give us more information, because as I mentioned in the comment on this video, knowledge is power. They can give us all that information so that we can make an educated decision on where we want to go on the way to where we need to be. That reduces the amount of time that we need to spend outside of the game, and increases the amount of immersion and also the enjoyment that we can get out of the game. It also increases learnability, because the game teaches you in that way. You don't have to look up anywhere. And just imagine if you were to do this with cargo missions, that you could get cargo information about the Lagrange point or the station that you're heading towards. Then you can see what kind of item or what kind of materials or contraband, I was about to say, what kind of cargo they have in stock on location. And that way you can make an educated decision as to see where you should go. Of course, this makes some wikis and websites redundant, but at the same time, I fully believe that these should be implemented into the game, because that's where they should be. You shouldn't need to go to third-party sources in order to figure out how to play the game. It should be given to you, especially when there's a very brief tutorial in just, how to look around and figure things out. I don't think it should handhold you the whole way, but I do believe that you should be able to gain the information needed in order to progress. But I personally love that they've even considered this, and this was something that I wasn't expecting at all. So I was very positively surprised by this. But hopefully when you select a marker, the planet will auto-rotate to where you need to be so that you're not looking at a huge blob on the screen, because what information is that going to give you? Like, really, what information is that going to give you? At least have some form of AR system, like they introduced last week in ISC, where when you hover over something, you get the information you require. Just like they're trying to do here. Like, you've got the beginnings of it. You've got Weeping Cove, there's some dynamics, here's a little description. But hopefully we can get a little bit more information out of these locations, like what we can expect here. Perhaps if there's an enemy presence, what's the threat level? It could make more of a dynamic experience and honestly give us a little bit more of exploration feel. And I feel like that will just add on to that exploration. Like, how dangerous is this place? Is the place that I'm going to unexplored? Can I perhaps make my own custom threat level at these locations that aren't registered? Can it perhaps be averaged based on player experiences? Can players make their own threat levels? That would be really interesting, and I think that they could explore more on how the players can interact with the mobiGlas and the system information. That would give us more immersion and allow us to have a bit more power as well as players to impact how the universe feels. So they talked a bit more about the different maps, about the new quantum system. They mentioned that you won't be able to set a marker unless it's possible to set a marker. Now, this was very vague in my opinion, and I honestly need to see it a bit more in detail in order to make a more educated opinion on it. But as far as I'm concerned, you can now set a route with R here if you have selected a location. And once you've selected a location, it will auto zoom to that location in order for you to see it more clearer, get more information out of it. So that's going to be a bit interesting. And I hope that they still keep the zoom function. It appears that you could zoom still. And here you can see a more zoomed in version. So I guess the more you zoom in, the more information you get. But it's not going to be as overloaded as to give you too much information if you zoom in too far. But it's going to be dynamic in the sense that if you zoom in, maybe you won't see some of the other planets that are more further away or Lagrange points. You'll be able to see other locations, or the locations within the location that you're zooming into, which just feels more logical. And it's kind of similar to how the current Starmap works as well, and I think it's honestly how they intended it to work in the first place. It's kind of interesting how they're implementing coordinates. Now, this is an immersion, just kind of like a cool detail, but it would be interesting if we could input coordinates to specific locations on specific planets, and maybe share those locations to people in order to distribute quantum beacons. Could share. The search function, I'm honestly a little bit iffy on the search function. Like, it's good that you can get results, and they're based on your input, of course. I'm assuming that you're going to be able to like scroll through if there's a surplus of information, that it won't cover up your entire screen. Perhaps you could have a filter in terms of the distance as well, so that you're not only seeing ones that are in alphabetical order, but maybe also like distance wise. If you're thinking that, hey, you know, I'm looking for this place, I'm not really sure what it's called, but I know that it's nearby, then it would be nice to be able to filter it to distance as well. So there's a bit more that they can do with the search as well. I like that they featured Pyro. There's a little teaser, all in all, that they were in Pyro, showing us a little teaser that they have got the system working for Pyro as well, that they've got the Pyro system up and running. This is still the inner circle area, so I can't for sure say that if Pyro is released or put in alpha that we'll gain access to the outer planets, but I'm sure that when they add it, they'll put priority on allowing us to explore those areas. I'm honestly looking forward to a lot of the features that they're adding, of course. I know that I'm giving my feedback here, but this is honestly just experience from just a feedback point of view, and also just from my education. One other thing I noticed is that the mobiGlas itself feels a little bit more prominent than it used to. I'm a little bit curious if they're going to add customization options to the mobiGlas soon. I'm a little bit unsure, but I don't feel like the current mobiGlas is as visible as this one is. Of course, it could just be because of the new UI system that they're making these LEDs a little bit more brighter, but yeah, here we go. So like this kind of thing. I don't know, it felt like it stood out a bit more to me. Because usually it's drowned beneath all the armor that you're wearing, all the stuff, so it'll be a little bit interesting to see what they add there. But yeah, that's all she wrote. Hopefully we'll see these systems added and they'll be stable so that they'll be fun to experience. I'm still a little bit iffy on, because they haven't mentioned at all how they've handled the orbital markers or the first-person UI here. They did talk about UI last ISC, but they didn't mention exactly how orbital markers would work. Orbital markers themselves, I feel, are just horrendously designed because they're all rhombus-shaped. Even orbital markers, Lagrange points, they're all the same, besides planets and moons. So hopefully the new system will replace that and make it more clear. I can already see that they've changed the UI color here for the GPS so that it's orange colored, which will absolutely help if they keep visibility for other orbital markers, that they don't just remove all the other orbital markers, but that you can actually isolate this one clearly based on color. Because color coding is such an effective method of creating contrast and guiding a user to a location. Because it stands out, it's just easy. Instead of just removing all the other options, because maybe you change your mind. Why do I need to go through the entire system again just to clear navigation? Of course, this raises the last point, which I will bring up, and I promise you that's all I wanted to bring up, is that the overlap for quantum jump, quantum beacons, when I'm without using GPS, has been such a pain in my ass, and it's a problem that persists when you have party members who are on the orbital marker or on the location that you're trying to jump to, and you can't jump to it because the quantum system or the navigation system is jumping to and from the same marker over and over again, resetting the quantum quantum calibration over and over again, and you can just never get it unless you like get the right angle or get the right distance to the location. So I really hope that they fix that and that you don't need to go to the GPS system in order to get that fixed. You should be able to scroll in order to select a specific one. If you want to go to a specific location, you should be able to lock the marker. You should be able to lock the marker so that you're able to choose a destination that works, that you want to go to. You shouldn't need to reset calibration to go to the same location because there are multiple markers on that location. Anyway, that is all I had to say regarding this ISC, and there are so many things that you can do with the mobiGlas and UI in general in order to make the entire experience a lot more immersive and better. But that was it, just because I wanted to really focus on the ISC. I wanted to see, or like test my way forward on how much I can contribute to ISC episodes, my own personal opinions that can perhaps stimulate discussion with you, the community. Besides that, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. This was Ranger, signing off.